So this might very well be a first for me in all my years of leading services to actually use a poem by William Wordsworth. I don't know what I was thinking. But it's a beautiful poem. It's called I Wandered Lonely as a Cloud. He was well known for doing a lot of walking, so he and I have that in common. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high o'er vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils. Beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze, continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle in the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of a bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkly waves in glee. A poet could not but be happy in such a jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye, which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills and dances with the daffodils. So the story goes like this. Mom gets a phone call from her daughter, lives a few hours away with the grandchildren. Mom, you have to come and see this. You really have to come to our house and I'll take you to see this. It's a really amazing thing. Mom does not have a whole lot of enthusiasm for this. It's been a long week, 2-hour drive there, 2-hour drive back. What's worth that? And so she kind of hems and haws, and the daughter gets more and more effusive. Mom, you have to come. If you can't come this week, you have to come next week. So with about as much reluctance as she could openly display, Mom says, all right, I can't do it this week, but I'll come next week. Now, they don't tell us in the story what was actually going on. Maybe she was just tired. Maybe the idea of driving so much just wasn't appealing to her. Maybe she just wanted a day where she didn't have any obligations. I feel this mother's reluctance. But she followed, she kept her promise, got in the car on the day she promised to go, and it turned out it was even raining to make things even happier. And she drove the 2 hours down to her daughter's house and played with the grandchildren and said, look, I don't care what you want to show me. As soon as we have lunch, I'm going home. I don't like to drive in the rain, and I really don't want to drive in the rain in the dark. A little passive-aggressive, but whatever. And her daughter says, oh, I was hoping while you were here, you could take me to pick up my car, because it's at the shop. Her mother looks at her, and like so many of us who have played that part in a child's life, we say, okay. So mother says, okay, the daughter gets behind the wheel. And pretty soon the mother says, I don't know where we're going, but I can't imagine there's a, auto mechanic shop anywhere near there. Oh, we're almost there, says the daughter. So they get to a point in the middle of the woods in the San Bernardino Mountains. And the daughter gets out of the car, and there's certainly no auto repair shop. She says, come on, Mom, get out. So everybody piles out of the car, and as the mother looks over, for as far as she can see, and almost as wide, there are swirls of daffodils. Different colors planted in lovely shapes, as though they're meandering like a river down the hill. And there are benches and every variety, and she catches her breath. You know how when something can be so stunning that you almost can't breathe? She's quiet. And she thinks to herself, it doesn't even matter that it's raining. The brightness of this beauty is enough for any day, kind of like the poet says. And then she's quiet some more, and then she turns to her daughter and says, this is so beautiful, but it makes me a little sad, too. What if I had started doing this a long time ago? My daughter kind of looks at her and says, come, walk a few steps, and there's a little sort of handmade poster there, plugged in the ground, and the poster says, answers to the questions you're asking. 50,000 bulbs, one at a time, by one woman, 2 hands, 2 feet, and very little brain, began in 1958. We read the sign in silence, and then the daughter turns to her mother and says, don't be sad. You can start today. This is where the story ends, and where the kind of moral of the story is laid out. And the moral of the story is much like the idea from the Tao Te Ching, you know, the voyage or the journey of 1,000 steps is right under your feet. So this idea that any of us, whether we've been dreaming of hiking the Appalachian Trail or planting a ton of daffodils or whatever it is, you know, we can take a step today and eventually get to that point, which I understand. And I also understand the idea that it's never too late to do something really, really, really important to us, because that's my story. You know, I ignored the call to ministry until I was in my mid to late 50s. And then when I woke up one night knowing that I went through all, I'm too old, right? But had I not gone ahead, even with my heart pounding as fast as it can go, I would never have had that feeling that one has when we faithfully and maybe without seeing the future, get the opportunity to be where we're supposed to be in life. So I understand the moral, if you will, of that story. And it pops up in different kinds of websites that are dedicated to, you know, spiritual growth, and some of them are religious, and, you know, the story has some traction. But the more I thought about it, I also thought, what if there's another message here? How is it? How can it be if you see such extraordinary beauty that it becomes the criticism of yourself? Why didn't I start this in 1958 or whatever? Maybe the lesson here is to be with the beauty. Allow it, experience it, allow it to draw us outside of ourselves. It's what beauty does. It's been studied. That's what beauty does. There's a philosopher, Iris Murdoch, who writes about being at one point in her, whatever was going on in her life, so tethered to worries about different things in her family and her work, just so tethered to this. And she looks out the window and sees a kestrel flying. And that the beauty of that flight brings her out into where that bird is flying. And all the worries, at least for a moment, at least for a time, could just dissipate. They're not her focus. You ever looked up at the stars at night, maybe on a summer night, in a place that doesn't have lots of pollution, and feel, my kids and I used to do this, we would lie back on the ground, taking as much space as we could, and we'd look up. And not necessarily feel small, but just feel part of something magical and beautiful and mysterious. What if you and I were always ready for beauty to erupt? What if we allowed ourselves to find opportunities and to expect to see and experience something beautiful? What if, when that happened, maybe we could just stop? Maybe if we had been with that mother and daughter in that place, we would have taken the time to wander down to one of the benches, forget the rain, and just looked and felt. The picture on the cover of, by the way, of the Order of Service is an actual picture. This is a true story. And allowed ourselves to experience it. And maybe not even to take a picture right away, but just let it be. Because pictures are fantastic, but they're not the same, right? They're not the same as being there. Beauty, like the beauty I've described this morning, is renewing. I was at my own car mechanic the other day because my windshield wipers sadly need a new motor, which I won't tell you how much it costs because it was good I was sitting down. But I love magazines in places, and I did not expect a whole collection of For Women First magazines in an auto mechanic shop. So I was like, oh yay, I'm looking through all the, menopause things and all that kind of good stuff. It was for me. And I saw an article about how you should cut flowers from your yard and put them in the house because you will actually feel better having a little bit of beauty. Or put your flags where you can always see them. So that is my message to you this morning. Renewal can come when we make room for it, and it can come when we don't expect it. And perhaps this week, as you leave this place and go back into the many places in your lives, you'll remind yourself to look for beauty. Let it work its magic on you. Amen, beloveds. Ashe, and blessed be.